Tonight, transaction advisors on a Japan royalties deal fight back after a leaked document from Office of the Attorney General described the deal as unconscionable, skewed against Ghana's interest, and a violation of the Bank of Ghana Act.
You refer to a paragraph. Attorney General, paragraph 2 of General Comments provides that it is unclear. It is transactional advice and also my response.
Okay.
Not in response, the assignment under the investment agreement applied to 75.6% of mineral royalties received from the specified mining leases.
Gabi Asaro-Chedako says the AG subsequently made another opinion and okayed the deal in a letter dated 12 August. We have details for you here on Top Story. And Top Story, as you know, is always brought to you by Gasem Cement. The nation's build and Vodafone. The future is exciting, ready.
This is Top Story with Evans Mensah.
The transaction advisors on the Japan royalties deal are fighting back tonight after a leaked document from the Office of the Attorney General described the deal as onerous, unconscionable, and a violation of the Bank of Ghana Act. In a letter from the Attorney General, Gloria Akufo, to Finance Minister Ken Ofori-Atta, dated 22nd July, she expressed concern the deal curtails the independence of Ghana's judiciary and the legislature. She said the agreement will amount to executive interference of the powers of the judiciary, which is a violation of the concept of separation of powers as provided under the Constitution of Ghana. But Gabi Asaro-Chedako of the Africa Legal Associates, which is one of the legal firms advising on the deal, told Osei Bonsu on Asempa FM a short while ago that the Attorney General subsequently okayed the deal after several engagements with lawyers.
Let me just refer to a letter from Attorney General, and then you understand the equation.
Yes.
This is 12 August. Till we refer to our various advice dated 1st April 2019, 28th May 2020, 22nd July 2020, and 5th August 2020, and the transaction advisors comments dated 12 June 2020, 22nd July 2020, respectively, on the investment for the proposed monetization of Ghana's mineral royalties. What must I say? Now, this is the final document, because one leaky way, they are doing it for a purpose. Attorney General said we have reviewed the latest letter and the reference and the submitted draft agreements, and know that our comments have been incorporated and changes effected to the draft agreements.
Which draft agreement went to Parliament?
Precisely. Then you go for one letter. All raise issues. Attorney General raise issues. Now, one fa letter na responded to issues. Now, one fa Attorney General comments to the letter responding to the issues. Then you are doing this for mischief purposes.
My colleague Joseph Opoku-Gakpo has copies of all these correspondence that, of course, is now subject to some controversy, as Gabi has clarified tonight. Joins me in the studio with it. Let's look at, Joseph, the specifics of the Attorney General's initial concerns.
So this is in the letter from Gloria Akufo to Ken Ofori-Atta dated the 22nd of July. Now, a number of concerns are raised. For example, point 4 in the general comment section, it says, further, it is noted that the terms and conditions of the agreement are very onerous, it says. It goes on to say, the provisions are skewed against the interests of the fund and the Republic. Both the fund and the Republic have strict obligations and liabilities with punitive consequences in the event of a breach or default, whilst the other contracting parties in the case, a Japan royalties and the local subsidiary, are to use their best efforts to ensure the execution of the contract. That's one of the things the document raises. And then it raises questions asking for clarity on how much exactly government is earning, and additionally, how much of the state's mineral royalties are going to a Japan royalty. So in point 3, it says it's noted from the nature and purpose of the mineral royalties investment agreement and the related agreements that there will be a one-off payment of a sum of $1 billion. It's however unclear what other benefits would come to the Republic and the fund other than the one-off payment, considering that this agreement runs in perpetuity with stringent responsibilities for the fund and throughout its lifespan. Then it goes on to say it's unclear whether the subject matter of this agreement is the entire mineral income as received by the fund or portions allocated to the fund that is to be transferred to Ejapa royalties as mandated by the law. And so in this case, the Attorney General was raising questions about how much of Ghana's gold royalties would actually be going to the firm. And from the explanation that Gabia Sarachi-Daku is giving, this is something that was subsequently clarified in the 12th August letter, that it will be just about 75.6% of that particular deal. Those are not the only two concerns. Again, there's a concern about possible breach of the Bank of Ghana Act, and the Attorney General says it is noted that payments in respect of this agreement will be made in US dollars. This violates the Bank of Ghana Act 2002 as amended by the Bank of Ghana Act 2016, which mandates that all transactions be made in the currency unit of Ghana, which is the cedi or its equivalent. It's therefore recommended that your mode of payments under the agreement be reviewed with various specific references. And then it goes on to say that the agreement runs in perpetuity and therefore have no fixed term. They are expected to run until the expiration of the last mining lease in Ghana. And the Attorney General says the agreement also appears to be cast in stone with no option to evaluate their effectiveness and or satisfactory performance so as to renew or terminate same should the need arise. And this is where the AG uses the word unconscionable, and she says this makes the agreement unconscionable.
And I see also in this letter the AG recommends some additional ways in which we could deal with the volatility sometimes in gold prices. However, we also note, because this 75.6% is also mentioned by the AG here, it says this is 0.7. We know that the subject matter, that is monetizing royalties and investing such income, has been ring-fenced for list co and royalty co, such that the Republic is precluded from exercising any right over the 75.6% shares as referred to in the agreement.
So Listco is actually Ejapa, the mother company registered in JC, that's the Ejapa Minerals Royalties Company, and then the local subsidiary is then the Royalty Co. So in this case, then the concern is being raised that when it comes to the shares, the 75.6%, it's not very much clear where the said sums would actually be going.
Yeah, and then the AG then has a recommendation on how they should deal with this. It says, however, we also note that the value of gold is not stable on the international market and likely to drop against the projection of high value, which may have negative consequences on the royalties received. It is suggested that this agreement should be for a fixed term for the avoidance of doubt and sanctity of the contract. Now, Joseph, what does she say about the deal being an interference in the work of the executive and judiciary? Something that you've read there already, but Gabi, speaking on Asempa, has been addressing that.
So just to quote that bit of it, the AG's letter to the finance minister says the agreement freezes anything legal, including judicial orders and decisions. And she goes on to say, in effect, no court can pronounce on any part of the agreement as being illegal, unconscionable, null and void, or any matter before the court which may or is likely to affect any part of the agreement. This will amount to executive interference of the powers of the judiciary, which is a violation of the concept of separation of powers as provided under the Constitution of Ghana. Then the AG goes on to say, therefore, the executive arm of government cannot enter into an agreement that curtails the independence of both the legislature and the judiciary. Then she goes on to say, laws change in line with society, and so to the extent that this agreement runs in perpetuity, it has the effect of freezing legislation indefinitely, which implies that Parliament cannot legislate on any matter which has the potential to affect the royalties in question. And then she goes on to say that this is actually in contravention of the Minerals and Mining Act 2006, where the minister, for example, has the authority to enter into a stability agreement as far as revenues and royalties that are coming from mineral resources are concerned. But Gabi Asare-Chedako says subsequently, again, in that August 12 letter that the Attorney General wrote to Ken Ofori-Atta after some back and forth with the transaction advisors, well, she said she was satisfied with the explanation that came.
You refer to a paragraph. Attorney General, paragraph 2 of General Comments provides that it is unclear whether the subject and on demand.
Yes.
What is
Yes.
It is transactional advice and also my response.
Okay.
Now, the response, the assignment under the investment agreement applied to 75.6% of mineral royalties received from the specified mining leases relating to 16 gold mining projects, not all mineral royalties and all mineral income payable to the fund. On lawyers and exchange. I can read the response to you, but the response will not catch you. Oh, there be. First of all, no, court there. The court is completely out. There's nothing. All explanation is and freezy. What must I say? It's not because and I tell you, General T. And you know, Attorney General Babak says okay, and I change it. Your friend saying where didn't be to make it clearer. Transaction advisor, I can read what the transaction advisor said, but it's actually to say all explanation is Debbie. It doesn't do that. No, it's okay, but
this is in reference to the concern about executive interference in the work of the judiciary and the legislature, and the chances that future parliament will not be able to legislate on anything that particularly affects this agreement. And according to Mr. Ochedakun, there were letters from the transaction advisors, African Legal Associates, Benchil, Lecter and Common Associates, as well as White and Case, clarifying the case, and subsequently the Attorney General was satisfied with the explanation that actually came in.
And this satisfaction was communicated in this 12 August letter Gabi referenced. We have a copy of that letter as well.
It does. We actually have a copy of the letter. So the portion Gabi read earlier about the fact that the Attorney General said her concerns had been addressed is actually captured in the letter. But the interesting bit is that apart from the Attorney General admitting in the 12th August letter that her concerns had actually been addressed, she went on to actually draw attention to some bits of concerns that she had raised earlier, which had actually not been addressed. Let me just run you through that letter very quickly. The Attorney General makes the point in this 12th August letter that we have maintained in all our advice to the ministry that the assignment agreement should receive parliamentary approval. And we know that was actually subsequently done yeah, because it came to Parliament for the necessary approval. But then she goes on to say, we note that clause 7.2 of the investment agreement has not been considered. However, the related comments under clause 1.4 of the relationship agreement has not been considered, and that the comments in the relationship agreement is as follows. Then she goes on to reiterate that particular comment. So essentially, she references the letter that she wrote earlier and said that when it comes to what she wrote on the 22nd of July, clause 1.4 of it that she had drawn attention to as far as the contents are concerned was actually not considered subsequently in terms of the said incorporation that the finance ministry said had been done. This letter makes the point that we also refer to the meeting on the 10th of August, and the letter indicates that our earlier comments on the draft agreements of the contents have been duly incorporated, and your request for a no objection. We have reviewed the latest letter under reference and submitted the draft agreement, and note that our comments have been incorporated and changes effected to the draft agreement, except the following. Then he goes on to list about 7 different points as far as those contents are concerned that he says had not been addressed, despite the earlier communication with the finance minister that those concerns be addressed. Okay.
We have on the telephone line right now a member of the NDC legal team. In fact, Adrius on his page, I guess, that we first saw the Attorney General's letter of the July that raised the concerns. I'm talking about Mr. Eduji Tamakro. Mr. Tamakro, thank you for your time here on Top Story.
Yes, Evans, good evening. Good evening to your listeners.
Mr. Gabriel Soshaku says that the leakage of this July opinion by the Attorney General was done with a mischievous intentions, because there was a subsequent letter on the 12th of August that dealt with the concerns that Attorney General had raised, and Attorney General was satisfied with it. Your reaction?
Evans, thanks for the opportunity. Remember that the 1992 Constitution is organized within the confines of probity, accountability, and transparency. Now, when you have a dealing that directly involves the mineral royalties, and remember that but for the state's exercise of its power of eminent domain, the principal owners of our mineral royalties ought to be the very communities where those minerals are. But the state today exercises its power of eminent domain, and for that matter, the state now takes control and retains only 10%, having signed a mining lease. It is on the basis of these 10% royalties that the Parliament of Ghana enacted the Mineral Income Investment Fund Act 2018. Evans, with trustees. Now, to the substantive issue of the Attorney General's opinion, in what capacity is Mr. Gabi Asere-Chidakun speaking relative to this matter?
He's a transaction advisor, as part of Africa Legal Associates.
Fantastic. And that he did not provide how he became a transaction advisor as far as this transaction is concerned, curiously. But what it tells you in all of these engagements, and rightly so from the Attorney General's initial opinion, that this whole thing, like he pointed out in point 4, and you have the initial opinion. I don't know if you can read a point 4 for me.
Point 4. This is the
general comment. The general comment.
The general comment from the July letter.
Yeah, July 22nd.
Joseph, you have it.
Oh, but I can read it.
No, Joseph's reading.
Okay.
Further, it is noted that the terms and conditions of the agreement are very onerous. The provisions are skewed against the interests of the fund and the Republic. Both the fund and the Republic have strict obligations and liabilities with punitive consequences in the event of a breach or default, whilst the other contracting parties, namely Royalty Co., in this case, Ejapa Royalties, and LISCO, which is the local subsidiary, are to use their best efforts to ensure the execution of the transaction.
Okay. Just quickly also before, Mr. Duji Tamakula had also raised a question about how Gabi's firm got selected. I think Gabi had also explained how that did happen.
He explained that in the conversation with OB on Asempe a while ago, that his firm, Africa Legal Associates, actually works with White & Case, which is the London-based firm that's actually been working as a transaction advisor on this particular deal. And so when White & Case got involved, he explained that they actually work with White & Case on other projects as well, including projects outside Ghana. And so when White & Case was to work on this, then they were recruited as part of that to also help them work on this. And for him, it amounts to no case of conflict of interest because they always work with White & Case. And as far as he's concerned, they are just doing their jobs regularly.
So it is,
and we're not directly recruited by government of Ghana, but because of their relationship with White & Case, that's how come they are involved in this contract.
Okay, Mr. Duji.
If I understand him, White & Case were contracted by the government of Ghana through no other person by Kofi Osafo-Maafo, correct? Who, as at the time of engaging or working for, as I say, now called Ejapa Royalties, he was still a deputy director of SNIT, correct?
No, we don't have any information to indicate that.
I'm submitting that to you. That at the time Kofi Osafo-Maafo was working on this transaction, I am submitting that to you. I'm making that point. That at the time he was working on this transaction, he was still the Deputy Director General of SNIT. The record will show that he wrote a letter to the presidency. In what capacity?
You have a copy of that letter?
Yes, I'll make that available to you. Look, this transaction, we have followed it up. But what is even more curious? Yes. What is even more curious, my brother, is the fact that even the 12th August 2020, second opinion of the Attorney General, you will notice that the Attorney General speaks more or less on conditional terms. If you do this, then it's fine. Look at the last portion of the letter dated the 12th of December. The 12th of August. You have that letter. Can you read it out?
You could refer to it. What's okay, Joseph has it. Joseph, yes?
So,
Joseph, kindly read the last
makes
portion.
The point. The Attorney General makes the point. We have no further comments on the draft agreement. The agreement may therefore be executed subject to the above comments. And there are 7 of those comments, including a recommendation that the issue of sovereign immunity be dealt with, a recommendation that there is some deletion as far as ARG Royalties Ghana Limited.
So you notice that even the last opinion by the Attorney General of the Republic, and on this note, may I respectfully say, having regards to her 22nd July letter, I think it's one of the most profound legal opinion uttered by an Attorney General of the Republic. But
Mr. Oduji, that opinion was subsequently taken by
I'm coming.
Another one. So the reference is, why don't you refer to the latest one, but that one?
That is why I'm saying that the 22nd. In fact, she has so far written almost 5 opinions.
And you have copies of all that?
All of them.
This is out of curiosity. I mean, how did you intercept all these pretty confidential documents from the Office of the Attorney General of the Republic when you are a key member of the opposition political party's legal team?
In fact, thankfully, these letters did not come from the Attorney General's office. Okay,
so you didn't. The leakage was not from there.
No.
I'm just asking. I'm a journalist, so I'm just curious. I'm just wondering, how do you intercept it?
Within the spirit of accountability, I've also forwarded same to your colleague.
That's true.
To ensure that everything is done. But the point I was making is that even the 12th August legal opinion that the Attorney General proffered, when you read it, you will note the level of hesitation and the fact that even the approval so-called from her is subject to other things having to happen. What we do not know, as you and I speak, is whether or not the very last agreement so executed incorporated the issues raised by the Attorney General in the 12th August 2020 opinion.
But the Attorney General says in that letter that she was satisfied.
Subject to. In fact, the tail end of the letter is very instructive. It was not a blanket approval that was given. It is subject to you incorporating these very conditions so raised or comments so raised. Question: as we speak, has that been done? Because the event after the 12th, we are not told. And Gabi never addressed those issues. And so even the 12th August 2020 legal opinion does not provide any solace for him. And I find it extremely curious that we are dealing with royalties without principal consultation with the chiefs of the various mining communities.
Yesterday, the finance minister addressed this. He was categorical that the 20% that is set aside for communities have already that go to the communities already. It is not affected by this particular deal. And so this is the government share of the royalties that government decides to use in this manner.
Evans, let us get it clear. It is not a question of the allocation to the chiefs. I am saying that the royalties are coming from mining done within their localities and for the people of this country. Now, any step taken to more or less mortgage our royalties, whether 76% or even 2% for whatever transaction, requires broader consultation.
But don't you see the finance minister's point?
Just a minute. No, Evans, just a minute. You notice that even the civil society groups, one of the concerns raised is the critical issue of the lack or the apparent lack of consultation.
But government even there had said, and including pointing out the minority side, that this whole transaction that has become a subject of controversy, the details of it was in the Minerals and Income Investment Fund Act, which gave the fund the authority to set up a special purpose vehicle such as has been now being set up, and that everything that is happening now is backed by the law that the minority participated in and was approved by the entire House.
Nowhere in the Act is it stated that, for instance, the finance minister or the fund or its trustees can go and establish an SPV in Jersey. That's an executive decision. And so the idea to rope in the minority, and in any case, Evans, even when this matter finally came on the floor of the House, the Honorable Dr. Dominic Akrotinga raised a very legitimate point as to the fact that most of these transactions have been concluded one way or the other before even the president assented to the amendments to the Mineral Income Fund Amendment Act 2020. You'll notice that Gabi runs away from that because you see, in law, like we say, you cannot put something on nothing and expect it to stand. And in fact, when this was drawn, the attention of the majority leader was drawn to this anomaly. Parliament, having seen that they were entering into a deep hole, decided to provide a conditional approval. These are the critical matters that we need to evaluate.
Let me ask you finally. Let me ask you finally. So this, I mean, I first saw the July letter on your page. I mean, that's where. But you already at that time you also had the 12th August letter, which said the AG was satisfied. The accusation is deliberately leaked one side and kept the other side for mischievous purposes.
It's important to make the point that even the Attorney General, as at the 12th day of August, still had concerns.
Yes, she did, as Gakpo had read. But the argument is that in there, she said she was satisfied. I mean, so why didn't you leave that one too together to give a balanced view of things?
No, he said she is satisfied, subject to A, B, C, D having to be done, which was never. And as we speak, we do not know whether at the time Parliament considered this transaction, the concerns legitimately raised by the learned Attorney General of the Republic were so incorporated in the agreement so approved by Parliament. That is not nowhere, and like I listened to Gabi today on Asempa, he never addressed those issues.
Finally,
and like I said, there are outstanding matters, even on the purely legal points.
Yeah.
Which I just told you.
Yes, you did. And so let me ask you. Let me ask you finally. So I mean, and this is not I mean one on the lighter side, but I'm just curious out of this. So how did you intercept these documents?
You mean how? Evans, like you journalists, what you don't do is that you don't disclose your source. The last time I checked.
Including letters that Mr. Safo-Manfo allegedly had written to the president and all that.
And even more, some with secret on it. And look,
and you have all that. Isn't that if it's secret, then aren't you in the waters of
the disclosure is there. What I'm saying is that to the extent that our republic, an item like royalties, remember that in some countries the issue of royalties had led to armed struggle and armed conflict. It is something that goes to the very root of our constitutional democracy. And so matters pertaining to how mineral royalties are dealt with, remember Niger Delta and others, it has to do with allocation of petroleum revenue and how it is used, it has led to armed conflict. So when you have a situation where 3 months to an election or 4 months to an election, our president, together with his cousin who is the finance minister, together with his nephew who happens to be a transactional advisor relative to this transaction, engage in matters where they keep items from all of us, it should be something that all of us together with you must be concerned about.
I'm grateful for your time. That is Mr. Eduji Tamaklo, who, of course, was the first to leak the Attorney General's documents. The document that was leaked was on the 22nd July 2020 document in which Attorney General had raised concerns. We've heard from Gabriel Ochodako today say that was overtaken by a subsequent letter on the 12th of August. That wasn't leaked as well. You've heard me ask him about the intent behind the leakage of one side. He's explained it. But Joseph is still with me because there are some timeline issues that we need to try and make sense of. Because this last 12th of August letter that okayed the deal, subject to some other condition.
Subject to the 8 different recommendations that the AG said had not been dealt with, although she had raised it earlier. So that was on the 12th.
That was on the 12th.
That was on the 12th of August. And then this is actually an agreement that came to Parliament on the morning of the 13th.
That's the day after.
Of August. So that was the day after, and eventually got approved on the 14th.
Okay, so then there was so this 48 hours.
Correct.
Between the time the AG okayed it, subject to additional things she said they should do, and the time that it got approved.
And then it got referred to the Finance Committee. The Finance Committee adjourned its meeting for very long hours and sat back later in the day to get it done. And then eventually, on the 14th, which was the day the House went on break, it got approved. So a 24-hour timeline between when the AG okayed it subject to the amendments and when it came to Parliament. And as we saw, within a little over 24 hours, it got approved by the House.
I mean, the question to ask is the AG okayed is subject to. The key question to ask there is that the things that the AG said, I'm okaying subject to, those items, were they addressed before it came to Parliament? It's an open question.
One of them is the recommendation that it gets parliamentary approval,
which we know
happened done. Because
yes.
By the rest, the analysis are still ongoing to find out what is missing and what is there.
I mean, constantly questions have been raised, answers have been provided. We see as we go on, further clarity obviously coming on the matter. Thank you, Joseph. Isn't it amazing when your network cares about you so much so that they do amazing things for you? You guessed it. I'm talking about the Vodafone Cash dropping all charges when you send money to all networks. Yes, you heard it right. It costs nothing. Absolutely nothing when you send money via Vodafone Cash to all networks. Just send any amount as many times as you want to any network and pay 0 charges on the money sent. So go ahead, make payments, show your love, make contributions, send money all you want to Vodafone Cash to all networks for free. Just dial *110# to send cash for free. Are you ready?